Joining me on the news to discuss issues and security, especially in Nigeria's north, Teniola Tayo, a researcher at the Institute for Security Studies, and News Centro's Head of Research and Monitoring Desk, Abdulateef Ahmed. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the news.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, let me start with you in the studio. The attack is in the news again. What do you make of this back and forth on it is true, it is not true? Did something happen?
Yes, really. First, it is saddening that a state like Kaduna State, which is strategic to the northwest and the country, as it were, is having repeated attacks every now and then, in spite of the amount of security formations in the state. It is worrisome that this is happening, and there's hardly an end in sight of these attacks.
Okay, but have you found there's any confirmation that the attack actually occurred the way it said it is being spread on social media, or we're going to take what the Kaduna State government is saying, debunking everything that happened?
So it's two ways. So people who were traveling from Abuja to Kaduna did say that they encountered bandits running, across the road, which is understandable. However, the Kaduna State government had come out to say that it is an operation, military operation against bandits, which is also possible. So in both ways, depending on how you look at it, it is possible what was happening was a military operation for which people had seen gunmen or the military, as the case may be, and decided to take, a reverse. So it could be both ways.
All right, let's come to you, Teniola. What is it about the Abuja-Kaduna road that has drawn repeated attacks that seems to be defying all security interventions? What can we do differently?
Well, I think one thing that always strikes me when we hear about these attacks is the numbers. So it seems like even though there's been a lot of military interventions and the military has made some gains, but then these so-called bandits still have numbers on their side. So then I ask myself, how come that is so? So it means that they're able to fill their ranks even if some of their colleagues or their comrades are killed. So I'd say that, to me, the big question is how do we make sure that there's not an endless resource pool for bandits or whatever violence entrepreneurs that they can recruit from and make sure that they do not suffer too much from military attacks or military losses. So yes, that's a key point for me.
How is it that the terrain of the 183-kilometer rail track, for which bandits find it an easy target of constant attacks?
Well, it's about the topography of the areas that the tracks pass through, because we all know that it's easier when these are areas that they can easily disperse into perhaps forests or similar areas where they can easily hide if they're going to be repelled by the military. So I think that is reality. We know that these attacks usually happen. For example, when it's the school attacks, it's usually schools that are closer to forests because they can easily disappear into those forests, and then it's easier to go after. It's more difficult rather to go after them. So I'd say that it's the nature of, say, a country like Nigeria and the nature of our topography and the reality that it's not always possible to monitor every single square meter of the country at the same time. And that's why we're supposed to be using quite more innovative solutions, towards surveillance and just making sure that we deter these attacks and then we also repel them very quickly to discourage future attacks.
Some of the victims, Abdulateef, claimed they had to use social media to get help when they had the things that were happening. What should government be doing to reinforce security around that axis, really?
First, I will be surprised why, for instance, parts of the axis, places like Kasarami, Rijana, Jere, for example, have poor network. You have crisis, repeated, attacks on that road for a very long time, and you still have poor network on that route. It's troubling because what it means is that if you cannot access, people outside that location, you cannot receive help. Even the military itself, the security agencies cannot operate properly in an environment where the network is poor. So first, it has to be back to the government. Why do we have poor connectivity in those areas.
So for you, one of the first things to do is to ensure connectivity, that's communication, is as free as possible. So
Absolutely, and surveillance should be on the high. It's a critical infrastructure, in the network of roads in Nigeria.
Talking of surveillance, the president mentioned the activation of a surveillance system for the rails in Abuja-Kaduna and Ibadan-Lagos rail. Do you see some ray of hope? Teniola.
Well, I hope so, just like everybody else. But then the question is it going to be maintained? Number one, the president has said so. But then at what point is it going to be put in place? Is it going to be implemented? And is it going to be maintained? Because, we have a tendency to start something, or first of all, to say things that end up not happening. And sometimes even when we start things, we do not continue them, or we realize that we don't have the resources to maintain them in the ways that they're supposed to be maintained. So, I mean, surveillance is the name of the game, really, because if you have eyes on those tracks or on whatever other infrastructure are being threatened, then you know that you can respond very quickly. And if you can respond very quickly, then it means that other groups would not be inclined to make similar attacks. So I think I'll join other Nigerians in hoping that our government knows what they're doing and that they're going to keep to their word and then see things through.
I guess that would be a good place to leave it for now. The conversation will certainly continue when you talk about security in Nigeria. I want to say thank you very much, Teniola Tayo, a researcher at the Institute of Security Studies, for joining us.
Thank you.
And of course, our very own head of research and monitoring. Thank you very much for joining us, Abdulateef.
It is my pleasure.